Hello, 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 coaches and leaders. I have the energetic and you're just like sparkly. I'm going to call you sparkly because I love, when we first met, it was just amazing. Dr. Kim Richardson's on with me, and we are going to have a wildly geeky and vivacious conversation about character strengths today. This is something I've loved for decades. And
Mm.
I love that you are like really bringing this into your work with coaches and leaders. So before we jump into it, I'd love to, first of all, welcome you to the show. I'm so happy you're here with me.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I love that we're geeking out. People just laugh when I say that that's what I'm going to do,
Hmm.
but you need that opportunity to just get excited about what we're learning because that's what keeps us growing. So thank you for the invite.
Yeah, this is awesome. So I'd love you to share with everyone listening that doesn't know you, because I know you're pretty well known in the coaching space. Where did you start within education and leadership, and what do you do now?
All right. Well, just really quickly, I was an elementary educator, always knew I was going to be a teacher. So I was an elementary teacher, went into instructional coaching, technology specialist. I was a building administrator, assistant principal, principal, and then started to do some incredibly crazy and imaginable things with the freedom I was given once I got to central office. So that's how my instructional coaching journey started because I was able to found and start a program in the school division that I work in. And then just became so changed as a person that I went all the way down the path to becoming a professionally certified coach through International Coach Federation. So I call it the happy marriage or the intersection of education and professional coaching because I think it's all about people centered leadership. That is the change that I went through. The leader that I was and the leader that I am should not ever meet because it's such a change. So that's what I'm doing. I am focusing on professional development. I do a lot of training and consulting with individuals, schools, organizations. So a lot of focus on leadership development. Instructional coaching is just one area of teacher leadership, which is my absolute passion. That was the topic of my dissertation. So all things leadership, but really down to the identity, because who
Hmm.
we are is what we do.
Yep,
Who we are is what we
absolutely.
do. Yeah.
I love that so much. And I love that you said people-centered leadership.
Yes,
What
it
in
is
what
the approach.
Yeah,
Mhm.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was
No,
gonna
I
say
would.
all
You go.
right, I'm gonna go first. I was gonna say the what I say I do is the human-centered approach to coaching. So I just love that, like, what we do. And it's, yeah, here we are. Here we are. Anyway, I'm like so excited to hear another human in the world, right, talking about
Oh,
how important it is to center the person.
so important. So I think we're aligned in all ways. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so we're going to talk about character strengths. Um, you know what? Why don't you give everyone a background? Like, what is this character strengths thing? Um, yeah, and we'll just go from there.
Yeah, let me just tell you. I was reading an ASCD article in the spring, and it was on. It was titled "Permission to Feel." That's really where all this started. It was just, in your face, boom, permission to feel, and it was talking about the fact that educators are not really given the permission to have the emotions. It was based off of a book. I cannot verbalize who the author is right now, but my one of my colleagues and I decided to do a presentation for our summer conference on that very thing. And I usually select a leadership theme for the year that I kind of use for anything and everything that I'm doing, either, just personally, professionally, where I'm going to be researching the area. And I said, I'm going to just continue with this, with the emotions, but it also ingrained so much with character that I just decided to call my leadership focus. Are you ready for it? Emotions and character are the soul of leadership. So, we defined soul as that inner self in relation to your experience because we don't all experience the same thing. So, our heart, our mind, our emotions, our thoughts, our desires, that is the soul. And of course, your soul is who shows up when you go to work or when you are interacting with people. So, it's those character strengths, it's the behaviors, it's the thoughts, it's all of the awareness and the self awareness that you have. have. So that is the theme, and that's where the character strengths came in. So I charged and challenged all the people that I have been interacting with, and I have no affiliation with this organization at all, but the VIA character strengths can be assessed by Googling that site. And the organization VIA stands for, oh my goodness, don't get me to lying. I cannot remember. They'll edit that out. I'm hoping,
Yeah,
but it, yeah,
I'm looking
I
at the, it doesn't
cannot
even
think.
say.
I know I cannot think of who it is, and I've clicked on everything, and they're all downloads PDFs. But I took it way back, maybe about 10 years ago. I had first taken those assessments, and I didn't pay much attention to it, but it was the signature strengths. And what triggered me about it when I was reading it was that they're virtues. And when we think of virtue, we think of so many other things than education or leadership. And so um, we came together, some of the groups that I work with, and just had the opportunity to look. It's VIA Institute on Character. They are who does the assessment. So they have the virtues of wisdom, courage, humanity, justice, temperance, and transcendence. Who? And so we just started to reflect on, how does that show up for me? But I'm so excited, the nerd out part, um, that there was a quote that really got me into adding the character to the emotion. If you remember from my original story, it's Abraham Lincoln. And it was a quote: nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power.
Mm,
So when I'm usually doing training, sometimes we speak about the power of a particular role, the positional, the influential power. And in my teacher leadership, some of the training that I might do, I show a clip of, here's really nerding out, when Spider-Man in the movie had like the black suit on with all the symbiotic stuff on him that turned him, kind of cocky, and he was getting a little out of character.
hmm
And so that stuff came off of him and fell on Eddie Brock, who was a horrible character. He would lie, he would change the picture, and he turned into a monster. And so I often have to tell teachers, don't be afraid of a position, work on your character, because that's what gets magnified when you step into positions of leadership. So that is where all of this started. And it's been incredible to have the comments about people saying, wow, I didn't realize that that's what people are seeing is my character versus my personality. And I don't get all into, all of that, but people are really starting to think about, what am I putting out? What's truly inside of me? And is it good? Is it what I want to be growing inside of me, what I want to be magnified in front of people? So that's the year that I've been having. And I'm gonna stay there.
I love that. I love this. And I love just strengths-based thinking in general, right? And I think that's a big conversation within coaching and leading is being strengths-based. But then the question is how? Well,
Yeah.
that's a nice thought. And it's these this the character strengths and knowing your character strengths. And then also like was it Strengths Finder? Have you heard of
Yes.
Clifton's? Strengths
Yes.
Finder is kind of
Taking all
in
the things. All of
yeah.
them. Taking them
Yeah.
all.
Yes, me too. Oh my gosh. And I they what I love is one, if you can name it, you can tame it, right?
Mm,
So it's like if I can name what my strengths are, like we can have healthy and unhealthy versions of these strengths, right?
yes.
They could be too much.
Yes.
Like I like to say like run us. It's like who's driving the car, me or the car? And it's like sometimes if these strengths are getting out of control and I'm not self-aware, I can be run by these strengths and not even be aware that maybe they're having a negative impact, right,
Yes.
on my leadership.
When we think about all of those assessments,
hmm
we always look for confirmation when we get those results. But what we also do is like flip to the end, like what came in at the bottom?
hmm
I'm empathetic or I'm not, we always do that because we feel like we have to have everything to be a strength. And we always tend to look at what I can improve instead
hmm
of really working on and mastering what it is that I bring. Like my number one character strength, according to the VIA Institute on Character, is love of learning.
Mm, mm.
love of learning.
Mm-hmm.
Now, empathy is really low. And when I first saw it, I was I'm caring. I care about people. And I
Mm-hmm.
had to get out of that because if I look at the strength of love of learning, that is what takes my passion, my time, also what I embed myself in. And then the other character strengths kind of will support the others. And so, we got to stop that whole, let me see what's low so I can
Yeah.
work on it,
Fix it. Mm-mm.
and yes, there are times when there are things we need to work on, especially when it's in accordance with our work. But when
Mm-hmm.
we're thinking about ourselves, we have to give ourselves permission to be ourselves, learn ourselves, and grow ourselves. And if we know what is strong, especially when we see alignment across all of the assessments, then you can kind of give yourself permission to to do that. So that's why I
Exactly.
will print an article and turn on the light on the airplane when nobody else has their light on, because I'm going to read that article because I'm
Me
just that
too.
curious. So
Same way. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. I would love actually for those a lot of folks listen to this podcast like in the car. And so
okay.
I would love to read these. Well, we'll put a link to all the assessment and all of that. It's free. But I would actually love to just read them aloud so folks have just even a sense of what these 24 strengths are.
Yes,
Or
yes,
uh, character strengths, that's what they're called, right?
yes,
Character
the
strengths.
character.
Okay, so they are appreciation of beauty and excellence, bravery, creativity, curiosity, fairness, forgiveness, gratitude, honesty, hope, humility, humor, judgment, kindness, leadership, love, love of learning, perseverance, perspective, prudence, self regulation, social intelligence, spirituality, teamwork, and zest.
Mm.
I love this so much.
Don't you
Um,
even just feel just already empowered just hearing that one of those is my top strength?
Mine. Yeah, exactly. I'm excited. I have to say, I haven't taken this assessment, but I have to say, on first look, I think either one of my top strengths, like the top strength, or one of them would be social intelligence.
Mm. And that is really good for you to go and look at and think about. And
Hmm.
sometimes, we pick what we want to be a
Hmm.
strength versus
Yeah,
what, we're being honest with ourselves. But
yeah.
I had the opportunity to dive in because, sometimes we're like, well, what is the strength and how is that different from those other pieces? And so, when you think about a character strength, it's the capacity
Mhm.
for the thinking, the feeling, the behaving. And it's like ingredients for, just being human, like you focus on. So they're not our personality, they're not our talents, which are things that, we do well, and they're not the skills, which is the proficiencies that we develop, and they're not resources, it's what is at our core. When I first started in focusing on instructional coaching and programming, I was calling it coaching at the core because who is it in the core of you? And so that's what makes them so different
Mhm.
um, than all of those other things that we typically look at and measure.
Yeah. So, once we find out our character strengths, right? When you are working with leadership teams, what do you do with them next? So after they know they've read about it, what happens next?
Well, I usually do a window mirror type of situation
Hmm.
um, when we have some heavy opportunities to look at, how does this look for me? What what is it that I do that demonstrates or is evidence of that? How could I use it in new ways? That was really interesting because people really had a hard time thinking about that. Because when do we ever get the permission to say, how could you do that in a whole nother way?
Hmm.
So, how could we use it in a new way? And then I turn it around and talk about, how could you use your character strengths to focus on the needs of your team or your followers? Because we know that followers need trust and compassion and stability and hope. So, not that those are character strengths, but how can I take my love of
Hmm.
learning and support my
Hmm.
team? Or how can I take my honesty
Mhm.
if that's a character strength, and how can I embed my honesty into my team. So that's when I had some amazing ahas after this article I read, and I wanted to make sure that I quoted it. So is it okay to talk about that now?
Yeah, yeah, please.
So the authors are Sosik Ukkan Eat, Arenas, and Scherer, and I'm sure I jacked up all of those names, but it is an article out of the Journal of Business Ethics called Self Control Puts Character into Action, examining how leader character strengths and ethical leadership relate. Okay, so just think about that for a second. So I was reading this article, and basically, they identified four of the character strengths that kind of equate to ethical leadership, which is a whole nother study, a whole nother series. But I'm just going to direct my eyes over here because those four character strengths, what do you think? What do you think if you had to, you just read all the 24.
I
What do you
love
think,
this so
like, yeah,
much.
what do you think would be the recipe for
Ethical.
ethical leadership?
Okay. All right. Give me a second. I need to look
Yeah,
through them again. Okay.
think about
All right. What would
it.
be okay, curiosity,
Okay.
I think. All
What
right,
would be
this is
your
on my
justification for curiosity connected to ethics?
oh.
I know. I know.
I think because ethics is ethics from my I have my master's in organizational leadership and learning, and I did a whole course just on ethical leadership. And I just remember a big point of that is actually ethics is paradoxical. It's
Mm,
not, we think
yeah.
it's like a black or white thing. It's actually paradoxical.
That's
And so I think when we are looking at being ethical leaders and it's not a black or white thing, we need to come to situations with curiosity
okay.
about, and it gives us the flexibility to see the whole picture about what's happening.
Woo. Oh, okay. So curiosity. So three more.
Curiosity. Okay. Um, I think judgment. I'm going to read the quote here. It says, I read all aspects objectively. I weigh all aspects objectively in making decisions, including arguments that are in conflict with my convictions. Yes. Okay. So I think
Okay.
judgment, because I can hold my own perspective and my own opinions and opposing ones.
Okay.
So
All right.
judgment. I'm tempted to say honesty, but I don't know. Let me see.
No, it seems like
uh,
it's a given, maybe.
yeah. Yeah. Honesty feels like it's given. And I'm like, I don't know. But oh, okay. I think okay. I'll take honesty. So the description here is I'm honest to myself and to others. I try to present myself and my reactions accurately to each person, and I take responsibility for my actions. Okay, I
Okay.
love that. And
Hmm.
then, um, okay. Okay, what's leadership? Okay, I'm between leadership and perspective. So,
Oh,
leadership says I take charge and guide groups to meaningful goals and ensure good relations among group members. And then
mm-hmm.
perspective is I give advice to others by considering different and relevant perspectives. That was related to my curiosity, but I think perspective is important. That might have actually I might have had curiosity be perspective. So I'll lean into perspective.
Okay. So out of the, if people have the opportunity to look at the graphic as they're watching and listening, the virtues are kind of in the rows. And so justice itself, which we would think is its own virtue, and the teamwork and fairness and leadership fall under it. So I asked a group of folks that I was doing a recent training with which character strengths they thought contributed, and we made a word cloud so we can see which words, and they were all up because everybody has a justification. We had prudence, we had forgiveness, we had perseverance. Now, the bigger words, I believe, were like fairness,
Hmm.
self regulation, and perspective. But
Hmm.
the four, according to this research in this article, bravery, think about it,
Uh-huh.
bravery, honesty, ding, ding.
Hmm.
Here were the two that blew my mind when I read the article:
Hmm.
social intelligence and self regulation. What? So we know, you and me know that it is all about the people skills.
Hmm.
So the social intelligence, being
Yeah.
aware of the motives and everything else and knowing what makes other people tick. And then the self regulation, I'm looking at what you're looking at, the self control, the discipline, the management.
Hmm.
So bravery, honesty, social intelligence, self-regulation.
Mm,
According to this research, equal out to ethical leadership. So, when we're thinking about the appropriate conduct and, the personal actions and the interactions, we have to show up as moral persons, as leaders and coaches and whatever we are. And, I think it's the self-awareness, which of course are your emotional intelligence or your social, emotional learning skills, of how aware I can be. Am I admitting when I'm wrong? Am I being consistent? And then managing it. So me,
mm,
and then managing it. How am I communicating it? How am I holding people up? So that was key. And one thing that I often think about is how did I show up
mhm,
under ethical leadership? Like, even though I might not have had that
mhm.
title and nobody was walking around, I'm an ethical leader, but how did I show up under an ethical leader when I think about what that looks like? And then on the other side, how do you react and operate in a setting and a climate with an unethical leader?
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever been in that situation?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. When I was a teacher, I was teaching in Atlanta public schools when the cheating scandal was happening.
No, you weren't.
It was my first 2 years of teaching. Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah. I had no idea. I was like, what? This is so weird. Why are people behaving like
Oh
this?
my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Wow.
oh no, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you
But
you
yeah.
really, you were in it.
Yeah. Yeah. And and I'm sure you coach folks too. I definitely coach folks that have leaders, whether it's in the district office or somewhere where unethical behavior is happening. And how do we bring integrity to how do us as leaders, when I say we, I'm just everyone listening, you, me, how do we bring integrity to ourselves
Yeah.
and to our situation, right? The people that are impacted by us.
And like,
When
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, no, well, just when unethical behaviors and sometimes decisions are being made.
Hmm. And you said, that can be a gray line of how we're defining it, but it's still about if I'm watching you as a leader, and I'm not expecting anyone to be perfect, but it can grow the trust, it can erode the trust. It can grow
Hmm.
the respect, it can erode the respect.
Hmm.
And, as the team member or the follower or whatever you want to call it, you know, my whole engagement at work, which is, one of my passions, the belonging, the engagement, the well-being, it's
Yeah.
impacted by that type of leadership, whether positively or negatively. What is the performance and the commitment,
Hmm.
and that's there because of that. So we have to really realize that we all have a responsibility, no matter what our title,
Hmm.
to do our best job at being transparent. And,
Hmm.
some people look at transparency like a control piece, or information. I'm going to hold this information, or I'm going, we have to really, that's where the self piece comes in.
Hmm. Hmm.
If I do feel like I need to hold on to information, why? Why do I feel like I
Hmm.
need that bit of power,
Hmm.
um, to then use against people, and
Hmm.
not necessarily against, but
Hmm.
so that leader self-control is the biggest piece, because that's what leads to the leadership. And then you have, as the article calls it, and I will quote that, psychological flourishing, that you are able to
Yes.
flourish. Isn't that like I was just thinking about a brain with flowers coming out of it.
Yes.
Leadership
Yeah.
leads to ethical leadership, which leads to psychological flourishing as far as an outcome. So that was a good article. Thank you to the authors. I will
Uh,
get in touch with them to let them know how I'm using it in the coaching and leadership space in education. But
I love it.
that's what I did. And I've
Yeah.
been able to speak to this, journey of mine in the last two blog posts that I have done. I only do, one a month to really think about it, but that soul, the character and the emotions, and then diving into the character piece and just, having an opportunity to reflect.
Yeah. And I'm so inspired by this. I love this. I've known these character strengths for so many years. I was sharing with you earlier. I said, when I was a teacher, I brought this into my classroom. For example, this is like a tiny classroom example, but I remember reading Appreciation of Beauty and Excellence, and it really striking me I was like surprised that was a character strength. And when I was a teacher, I was so quirky. I taught fifth grade, and we would watch the sunrise every morning. We were out in
Oh,
trailers, and we would, as kids were, kids come in, you have the do now or morning work. We didn't have, we just stood together and watched the sunrise. I was like, we are
Oh,
appreciating some beauty, kids. Isn't that funny? But it just really
but
struck
it
me, and
stuck with you.
yeah,
It
it
stuck with
stuck with
you.
me. Yeah, that is a character strength.
You know what?
Um,
Now that you're saying that, when I was principal at an elementary school, we were a character count school, character
mhm,
counts everywhere all the time. And we would
mhm,
focus, each month on one of the pillars.
mhm,
And never forget when, there were certain pillars that aligned with certain things like trustworthiness, respect, responsibility, fairness. There's one more, caring, I think, and citizenship. But I remember that we were focused on them, and over our morning announcements, which are on TV, they say our character counts pillar for the month is trustworthiness. And then they would read the bullets, and I have it here. So be honest, don't deceive, cheat, or steal, have integrity, do what you say you'll do, keep your promises, be loyal. So it wasn't
here.
okay. So I was in the cafeteria as principal one day, just listening to the kids, and there's a little squabble going on at the table. And I asked, what's going on? And the little girl said, well, I won't mention any names, but he said that he stole his fruit cup. And we're supposed to not deceive, cheat, or steal. And
Mhm,
it was just so rote out of her language, a second
mhm,
grader. But what I started to realize was, okay, we can say it all day long. I can have my character strength. I can make a poster of it. I can make a bulletin board of it. Did it transfer? Did
mhm.
it transfer? Am I able to recognize in myself or even in a situation that's not right? Or, I shouldn't do that even when nobody's looking. When I saw kids start to have these conversations, when I saw teachers start to say, hey, we said we were going to play by the rules, because we're going to be fair here. When it gets embedded, and I'm not, again, also promoting character counts, but whatever it is it sinking in? Are
Mhm.
we able to be reflective, turn the mirror on me, and then apply it?
Mhm.
That's what it's about. It's the
Definitely.
values that are a part of you. And
Yeah.
it's just been amazing to have this time to, take a moment and focus on, one bit of area. Like you said, geek out a bit.
Mhm.
I've got two more articles I want to read, so I don't know what else. But
Yeah.
I hope
So,
people are feeling a little motivated to be able to
mhm.
take that dive and, and check out a few things.
So I think there's a few benefits, and I could just see very immediately things that folks can do with this, how you could how they could use it. One is have your leadership team, your coaches and leaders, your instructional leadership team, everyone take it and then share. I love your. I've never heard the phrase of mirrors and windows. So I'm like, this is great. This is so clear. So right, be self-reflect with your. You look into the mirror, self-reflect on what your strengths are, and then be a window. Share what your strengths are as a team and start to acknowledge them. What I love about I like to have my the teams I work with take the Enneagram, and it's self-assess. You get to say what your motivation is, and what's beautiful is folks get to acknowledge in each other, like, ooh, that's that strength of yours. We love that, and I love that we can start to see and name our own
Mm,
strengths, but also others, and be like, ooh, you have this strength that is not one of mine, right? It's lower on the totem pole, and I can value that and name that in you.
yes, we as my department, my team, between our strengths, between our Myers-Briggs, between our character strengths, between our primary trust facets, I'll talk about that later, and our Myers-Briggs, we kind of just intentionally open our meetings with a strong grounding, a strong community building, and we're making sure that we reconnect ourselves back to that so that we can reflect on it but connect as a team. So,
Mhm.
you know, I've asked before, which of your top five character strengths did you, see really help you in your work last week? And, while it's not the first thought, people will go back, they'll look and they'll say, you know what, I saw my kindness show up when I, blank. And it's that type of opportunity to to really think about how this shows up for me and what it is that I'm doing. And sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I did use my character strength. And even sometimes, how would you like to use it? So we have to make sure that we don't just turn it into this another report. As you
Mhm.
said, how do we bring it to life? What
Mhm.
can we do to, acknowledge our team members? And then also, a whole team. It would be great if there are sprinklings of those different virtues, or if you're on the strengths, the strengths finder, you've got those four
Mhm.
areas of influencing, executing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. What's your team look like?
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah,
and how does that help the work? Because it's about the work
exactly.
and it's
Yeah.
about supporting student achievement. So,
Yeah. What I love too about these strengths-based assessments, and so this one specifically is we can live our lives through these character strengths. We can have our romantic relationships through these character strengths. We
oh
can
yeah.
we can be excellent coaches. There's no perfect combination
Hmm.
of which makes a great leader. You can be a great leader with any of these strengths if we lean into them and understand how to live our lives through them. We're not
Yes.
only we not only get to be excellent at what we do, we get to love what we do and bring the joy back into our work.
Yeah. If we can actually carve out the time to realize that this is a part of who I am
Mhm.
and contribute the time and the energy to focus on me. I kind of use the phrase, give yourself the gift of growth, not the gift of time, the gift
Mhm.
of growth. Just dive all the way in. My top five are love of learning, gratitude, perseverance, leadership, and spirituality. I'm not walking
Mhm.
around with them. I might not even remember them all. I know my top one, and my top two. And so I want to lean into them. If that showed up as a strength, I want to lean into it and not, feel like I have to go fill a deficit hole somewhere.
Right, that's exactly it. Oh, I love this so much. Okay, we have to wrap up. Both of us have other things we need to do today, but I have really enjoyed this conversation. I love
Thank
like,
you.
oh, I feel like we're like character strength, spirit people. So thank you for having this conversation with me and sharing like the really interesting research you've done around it with your love of learning. We love this.
That's
So thank you
what
so
it
much.
is.
Where can folks find more about you and what you do?
Sure. So my website is drkimleadership.com. My blog comes out monthly, so there's a blog link there. I try not to bother people with a whole lot of emails, but it really just is my learning journey and what I've been able to share. And it's all connected, as I said, this year to the emotions and character of the soul of leadership. And, um, I ask people, just email me. I'm not the expert of all things, but I'll certainly share what I'm learning, what I'm researching, and how to help support you because leadership is number two next to the impact of teachers and impact on student achievement in the classroom. So, let's focus on the people that we have to work with because we cannot do it without them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I
Yeah.
love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Becca.